My son, Michael, lobbed my perfectly seared prime rib onto the emerald expanse of our backyard, a twisted arc of disrespect against the backdrop of a flawless Californian sunset. It landed with a sickening plop, a dark, greasy stain blooming on the manicured turf. The sizzle of the grill still hung in the air, but the caustic sting of his words drowned it out, echoing louder than any summer evening cicada. It was our customary Sunday barbecue, a tradition I'd upheld for 40 years, a ritualistic gathering meant to signify family unity and shared prosperity. Instead, it had become a weekly stage for Michael to assert his dominance, for Veronica, his wife, to wield her subtle venom, and for me, Amanda, his mother, to be systematically, publicly dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. Today, I was, to him, just another piece of trash to be discarded. Want meat, Amanda? Go chew it at the nursing home, you useless old woman, he spat, his voice laced with a condescension so thick it was palpable. His eyes, once the innocent blue pools of my childhood dreams, now glinted with a cold, predatory calculation, mirroring the chill that had settled deep in my bones over the past 2 years. Beside him, Veronica, a serpent in designer silk, offered a thin, triumphant smile. Her lips painted a perfect blood red, her gaze a silent, expectant claw, waiting for me to shatter. My 2 grandchildren, 10-year-old twins, Leo and Lena, stood rigid, their faces reflecting the chilling indifference their parents had so meticulously cultivated. No one moved. No one spoke. The boisterous laughter of the last hour died a sudden, violent death, replaced by the suffocating silence of judgment and complicity. I stood there, transfixed, the scent of charcoal and fresh-cut grass suddenly acrid in my nostrils, twisting in my gut. This backyard, a canvas for countless family memories, where Robert and I had hosted everything from exuberant birthday parties to quiet, contemplative anniversaries, where Michael himself had chased fireflies as a boy, had transformed into an execution ground. And I, the bewildered matriarch, the unsuspecting lamb, was the condemned. My knees, stiff with 63 years of unwavering devotion, protested with a dull ache as I bent slowly, deliberately, to retrieve the defiled piece of meat. My hands, once nimble enough to navigate the labyrinthine world of corporate finance, now trembled. But it wasn't from weakness. It was from the simmering, molten core of a pure, white-hot fury that I had been suppressing. 1,000 tiny indignities swallowed. A lifetime of quiet resilience pushed to its absolute breaking point, until now. This was the final cut. "Michael," I said, my voice, to my own surprise, unnervingly calm, a silken thread of steel, as I brushed dirt from the charred surface of the steak. The rich smell of prime beef, once a comfort, was now an insult. "What did you just say?" He scoffed, a harsh, dismissive bark that grated on my ears like fingernails on a chalkboard. "You heard me, old woman. You're becoming a burden, a drain. This house is too big for you. It's time you faced facts. You can't stay here forever." He gestured broadly at the sprawling, meticulously maintained estate, a property easily valued at $20 million, a testament to Robert's success and my own tireless, unseen efforts. The gesture itself was an act of casual ownership, a dismissal of my very right to exist within its walls. Veronica, ever the insidious echo, ever the subtle knife, chimed in, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweet concern that was more toxic than outright venom. "Darling, we're just thinking about your best interests. A place with round-the-clock care, activities, people your own age, a lovely community in, say, Arizona? Sedona, perhaps? The dry weather is so good for your joints, Amanda, and the desert air is so invigorating for seniors." She gestured vaguely towards my knees, then subtly to my temple, implying a need for both physical and mental care. Her eyes, however, held no compassion, only a calculating gleam. My gaze, usually a soft, faded blue, sharpened into chips of glacial ice. I met her eyes, then Michael's, then the blank, uncomprehending stares of my grandchildren. My best interests, you say? Or your best interests in liquidating this multi-million-dollar property, emptying my remaining accounts, and making a tidy sum for yourselves while I wither away in some distant desert forgotten, a burden efficiently disposed of? The words hung in the air, blunt and accusatory, shattering the fragile veneer of their feigned concern. Michael's face flushed an ugly crimson, a fleeting flicker of guilt in his eyes quickly extinguished by a defensive sneer. He shoved his hands into his pockets, avoiding my gaze. Don't be ridiculous, Mother. We just want what's best for you. For us. For the family legacy. The family legacy. Robert's legacy. My late husband, Robert Maxwell, had built an empire, Sterling Group, a global real estate and asset management firm, from absolute scratch. From a single dilapidated warehouse in downtown Los Angeles 4 decades ago, he had, brick by brick, deal by calculated deal, carved out a fortune that stretched across continents, a testament to relentless ambition and shrewd ethical business. And I, Amanda Maxwell, was his hidden architect. While Robert, the charismatic visionary, charmed investors with his grand pronouncements and magnetic presence, drawing in the crowds with his magnetic energy, I was the one toiling behind the scenes, a meticulous, relentless force. I'd pore over arcane zoning laws, dissect complex market analytics with a scalpel's precision, structure intricate financing packages that seemed to defy gravity, and anticipate every conceivable legal pitfall, often before Robert himself had even conceived of the idea. I saw the patterns, the hidden opportunities, the subtle geopolitical shifts that forged or fractured empires. I was the silent partner, the strategic mind, the relentless analyst who kept Sterling Group not merely afloat, but soaring, expanding, conquering new territories with quiet efficiency. Everyone saw Robert's dazzling charisma. I ensured his ambitious visions had an unshakable foundation to stand upon. Our partnership was symbiotic, perfect, and after his sudden, unexpected passing from a massive stroke 2 years prior, a blow that had nearly shattered me, I had quietly, meticulously, transferred all of Robert's personal assets, the entirety of his liquid wealth, into my own private, utterly untouchable trusts. This was a secret I had guarded fiercely for decades, even from Robert himself. It was a strategic move, born of a deep-seated desire for absolute independence, a quiet rebellion against the societal expectation that a woman's worth was solely tied to her husband's fortune. The Sterling Group itself, his publicly traded company, had passed, as per his will, to Michael. But his personal fortune, the true bottomless treasure chest that he had built in parallel, was mine. A contingency plan, a silent bastion of power, that I had hoped I would never have to deploy. Until now. Legacy? I repeated, a dangerous, silken softness in my voice. A tone so low it was almost a whisper, yet it commanded attention. Michael, you wouldn't know a legacy if it bit you on the rear. You've been systematically dismantling everything your father built, haven't you? Selling off prime, long-term hold properties for quick, short-sighted cash. Making questionable, high-risk investments based on little more than a whim, a glib promise from a charlatan. All to fund your and Veronica's increasingly extravagant whims and that insufferable Jonathan Thorne's exorbitant consulting fees. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking angrily in his temple, a telltale sign of his growing agitation. That's not true. I'm modernizing, Mother. Streamlining. You just don't understand modern business. Things are different now. We need to be agile. Oh, I understand it perfectly, I murmured, my gaze unwavering as it swept over my suddenly uncomfortable family. The casual cruelty in their eyes, the smug certainty, finally gave way to a flicker of genuine unease, a dawning realization that the ground beneath their feet was about to shift violently. I understand avarice. I understand betrayal. And I understand that, effective immediately, you are all about to learn a very painful lesson in consequences. My final words hung in the air, a pronouncement of doom disguised as a promise. The very next morning, as the California sun began its ascent over the Santa Monica Mountains, casting long, accusing shadows across the perfectly manicured grounds of the mansion, I began to pack my bags. Not a single tear fell. There was no room for sentimentality, only cold, hard resolve. Each item I folded: a cashmere sweater, a worn leather-bound copy of Emerson's essays, a fragile, sepia-toned photograph of Robert and me on our wedding day, both of us so young, so full of hope-fueled the quiet, unwavering determination that hardened in my chest a diamond of purpose. This opulent mansion, a gilded cage filled with the echoing laughter of a departed husband and the stifled dreams of a quietly competent wife, would no longer be my prison. It would be my weapon. My first call, even before I finished packing the last box of books, was to Elaine, my trusted real estate agent. Elaine was no ordinary agent. She was a master of discretion, a silent operator in the high-stakes world of elite property transactions, renowned for her ability to move properties quickly and quietly, often through her exclusive network of ultra-high net worth individuals who preferred anonymity. She understood the unspoken rules of the game, the importance of speed and secrecy. She knew my family's penchant for public displays of wealth and their corresponding disdain for privacy when it came to their own ostentation. "Elaine," I began, my voice clear, steady, and devoid of any tremor, a stark contrast to the earthquake I was about to unleash. "I want to sell the house, fast, off-market. No open houses, no public listings, no coming soon signs. I want a buyer who can close within 2 weeks, with cash. And I want the proceeds transferred to a new, undisclosed account, one that is absolutely impenetrable to anyone, especially my son." Elaine's voice, usually effervescent with the promise of a lucrative deal, became grave, a rare note of concern. "Amanda, are you all right? This is incredibly sudden. I thought you loved that house. It's been your sanctuary since Robert passed." "I love the man who built it, Elaine," I corrected her, my voice cold as steel, brittle with suppressed emotion. "The house is just bricks and mortar, a very expensive, very valuable set of bricks and mortar. And it's about to become a very large, very public problem for my son." I could almost hear the gears turning in Elaine's shrewd mind. She understood. Within 72 hours, the discreet "for sale" sign, tastefully hidden amidst the blossoming jacaranda trees and not visible from the street, went up. Within a week, a private buyer, a reclusive overseas tech billionaire known for his rapid, decisive acquisitions and his preference for unencumbered, turnkey properties, made an all-cash offer. It was well above market value, a staggering sum, with an immediate closing date. The deal was meticulously structured by Elaine and my personal attorney, Sarah Davies, to be airtight, irrevocable, and utterly untraceable to my son, leaving no loopholes for him to exploit or contest. The paperwork was signed digitally, the funds wired, and the keys exchanged without a single direct interaction. The transfer of ownership was complete before Michael even knew what hit him. Meanwhile, Michael's phone began its relentless assault. And ring, and ring. 28 times that day alone he tried to reach me. Each time, I let it go to voicemail, listening to his escalating panic with a chilling sense of detachment, a grim satisfaction. His messages escalated from bewildered confusion to escalating panic, oscillating between bewildered demands, furious accusations, and then, finally, outright, desperate pleading. "Mother, what the hell are you doing? Elaine just called me. You're selling the house? Are you out of your mind?" His voice, initially laced with thinly veiled anger, quickly grew hoarse with disbelief. "Mother, please, pick up. This is insane. Where are you going? What about us? What about Leo? You can't just disappear." The pleading note became more pronounced, tinged with a raw fear I had never heard from him before. This was not the arrogant, entitled Michael I had grown accustomed to. This was the frightened boy I once knew, momentarily resurfacing, desperate and lost. "Mom! I'm begging you! Please, don't do this. We can talk. Just tell me what you want. Anything, please!" His last message was a broken, tearful sob, utterly devoid of the arrogance that had defined him. It was a sound that, under different circumstances, might have broken my heart. But my heart, I realized, had become a fortified bunker, hardened by years of small, insidious betrayals. I sat in my new, surprisingly cozy apartment in a quiet, unassuming luxury high-rise in downtown Los Angeles, far from the sprawling, pretentious suburbs of Michael's world. The city lights glittered like a scattered galaxy beyond my panoramic window, vast and indifferent, much like my feelings towards Michael now. I had chosen this location for a reason. Its anonymity offered a stark contrast to the spotlight I had just escaped, and its central location allowed me to orchestrate my next moves with surgical precision. Here, no one knew Amanda Maxwell as Robert Maxwell's widow. Here, I was just Amanda, a woman with a keen mind and an unexpected, formidable second act. My former life, the one tethered to Robert's shadow and Michael's demands, was now a distant, fading memory. My first call after letting Michael's final, desperate voicemail fade into the digital ether was to Sarah Davies. Sarah wasn't just my attorney. She was a brilliant legal tactician, a relentless prosecutor, and one of the few people who truly understood the depth of my strategic mind. She specialized in complex corporate litigation and had a formidable reputation for dismantling elaborate financial schemes, often against seemingly insurmountable odds. I had known her for years through various charitable boards, our paths crossing in the quiet, influential circles of philanthropy. She had always respected my quiet competence, my methodical approach, often seeking my advice on the financial nuances of cases. Our intellectual kinship was immediate and profound. "Sarah," I began, my voice crisp, professional, a general addressing her field commander. "I'm ready to move. Michael just received the notice about the house sale. He's in a state of utter shock and panic. The perfect moment to strike." "Excellent," she replied, her voice equally sharp, a note of grim satisfaction underneath, like a predatory cat sensing its prey. "My team is prepared. We have everything we need to proceed with the forensic audit of Sterling Group and the formal legal action against Michael, Veronica, and Jonathan Thorne. The net is ready, and it's a very fine mesh." Jonathan Thorne, Veronica's brother, a man whose serpentine presence in Michael's life had become increasingly pervasive and problematic since Robert's death. Jonathan, a self-proclaimed financial guru and corporate restructuring specialist, possessed a slippery charisma and an uncanny ability to identify and exploit vulnerabilities. He had systematically infiltrated Sterling Group, not through overt power plays, but through a gradual, insidious process of befriending Michael, praising his modern vision, and subtly undermining any lingering influence I might have had. He'd been whispering insidious advice into Michael's ear, encouraging him to make impulsive, high-risk decisions, to liquidate valuable, long-term assets for immediate, short-term gains, and to enter into dubious, often opaque partnerships with entities that were, in fact, thinly veiled shell corporations controlled by Thorne himself. I had watched, horrified, from the periphery as Michael, blinded by his own burgeoning ambition, easily manipulated by Jonathan's oily charm, and desperate to prove himself superior to his legendary father, began to systematically dismantle the solid, ethical foundation Robert had so painstakingly built over 4 decades. My own covert investigation had begun subtly, long before the barbecue incident, a quiet hum of suspicion growing into a roaring alarm. I had access to Robert's meticulously kept private files, his personal encrypted digital diaries, and a secure server he had maintained with backups of all Sterling Group's financial records. Robert, ever cautious, ever prescient, had foreseen the chilling possibility of corporate malfeasance, even by his own son. He had subtly, over the years, taught me the nuances of forensic accounting, the telltale signs of embezzlement, the digital footprints of fraud, the intricate web of shell corporations used to obscure illicit transactions. He trusted my keen eye for detail, my intuitive ability to connect seemingly disparate pieces of information, to spot the anomalies that signaled deeper corruption. And it was this hidden skill set, sharpened over decades of quiet observation, meticulous record-keeping, and late-night self-education that was now my deadliest weapon. The digital trails Jonathan Thorne left were, to my trained eye, remarkably amateurish, yet effective enough to fool Michael's complacent, increasingly negligent oversight. Jonathan had been siphoning off vast sums of funds through a labyrinth of phantom shell corporations, funneling money into untraceable offshore accounts, and orchestrating grossly inflated contracts with his own front companies. He operated with a brazen confidence, believing himself untouchable, too clever to be caught by the likes of Robert's old-fashioned accounting methods or Michael's lax supervision. Veronica, Michael's complicit wife, was not merely a passive bystander. She was an active participant, brazenly signing off on extravagant personal expenses charged directly to company accounts, designer clothes, exotic vacations, lavish parties, and providing Jonathan with internal access codes to Sterling Group's most sensitive financial databases. They were bleeding Sterling Group dry, systematically weakening it, preparing it for a controlled implosion. Their ultimate, audacious goal, as my investigation chillingly revealed, was to buy up the weakened, devalued company for pennies on the dollar through a dummy corporation they had set up, stripping it of its remaining, most valuable assets, primarily the vast portfolio of undeveloped land Robert had secretly acquired years ago, land that was now worth billions due to new, highly anticipated urban development plans in the Los Angeles region. This was not just theft. It was a hostile internal takeover, a complete decapitation of Robert's legacy, a desecration of his vision. "We'll file the injunction tomorrow morning. First thing," Sarah confirmed, her voice grim, resolute. "To freeze all Sterling Group's assets and prevent the sale of any undeveloped land parcels. Then the formal lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty, corporate malfeasance, and criminal fraud. It will be public, Amanda. Very public. A sensation. Are you truly ready for the media circus? The accusations? The inevitable backlash? The character assassination attempts they will undoubtedly launch against you?" "I'm ready, Sarah," I said, my voice steady, unyielding, my resolve absolute. The truth, no matter how ugly, is always better than living a lie, and I want the world to know exactly what kind of people Michael and Veronica truly are, and what kind of venomous snake Jonathan Thorne is. Robert's legacy deserves better than to be squandered by greedy, incompetent hands. The news hit the financial world like a Category 5 hurricane, its devastating impact reverberating through every major news outlet, shaking the foundations of the corporate elite. "Widow unleashes legal fury, son-daughter, in-law implicated in multi-million-dollar fraud at Sterling Group," screamed the front page of the Wall Street Journal, its bold type, a declaration of war. "Maxwell dynasty implodes as matriarch uncovers shocking lies," blared the Los Angeles Times and the Phoenix Business Journal, their headlines dripping with sensationalism. My face, usually reserved for quiet society pages or philanthropic event photos, now a familiar, stern visage, was plastered across every major news outlet, sometimes beside a stern-faced archival photo of Robert, sometimes beside a bewildered, increasingly desperate Michael. The narrative was clear. The quiet, unassuming widow had transformed into a vengeful titan, a financial avenger emerging from the shadows. The ensuing legal battle was brutal, protracted, and excruciatingly public. Michael and Veronica were utterly blindsided. They had anticipated, at worst, a quiet family dispute over the house, perhaps a demand for a larger allowance from my personal fortune, a brief, embarrassing skirmish that could be smoothed over with a discreet settlement. They had never, in their wildest, most arrogant dreams, imagined that the useless old woman they had so casually scorned, the grandmother they had dismissed, would unleash a legal and financial reckoning of this terrifying magnitude. They believed me to be a senile, dependent relic, easily manipulated. Their underestimation was their gravest error. Michael's phone, which had previously rung only with his frantic pleas to me, now buzzed incessantly with calls from Sterling Group's enraged board members, its largest institutional investors, and a growing chorus of furious creditors. His carefully constructed image as the visionary successor, the shrewd businessman following in his legendary father's footsteps, crumbled with terrifying speed, revealing a weak, easily manipulated man drowning far beyond his depth, exposed for the incompetent charlatan he truly was. Veronica, usually so poised and self-assured in her carefully curated public persona, dissolved into a tearful, indignant mess on national television, hysterically proclaiming her innocence and shamelessly accusing me of being a bitter, senile old woman driven by pure, unadulterated spite. Her performance was so over the top, so devoid of genuine emotion, that it only served to further discredit her in the public eye. Jonathan Thorne, the slick, chameleon-like opportunist, simply vanished from public sight, leaving behind a trail of empty, anonymous offices and frozen shell corporations. He had, as expected, melted into the shadows, a ghost of the greed he embodied, a phantom of the financial underworld. My daily routine, once so quiet and predictable, centered around leisurely walks and afternoon tea, transformed into a relentless whirlwind of high-level legal consultations, meticulously crafted media statements, each word carefully vetted by Sarah to be factual, devastatingly precise, and impossible to refute, and a constant stream of phone calls from old friends, former colleagues, and even long-lost acquaintances. Many expressed genuine shock, heartfelt sympathy, and a palpable, newfound admiration for my strength and unwavering resolve. Amanda. I had absolutely no idea. Old Mrs. Henderson, a longtime family friend from the country club, whispered over the phone, her voice tinged with horrified disbelief. Michael always seemed so devoted. Such a good son, a pillar of the community. Appearances, Mildred, can be deceiving, I replied, a weariness seeping into my voice that no amount of rest could alleviate, a fatigue born not of physical exertion, but of emotional warfare. But the truth, eventually, always finds its way to the surface. Like a corpse, it eventually floats, and it brings with it the stench of corruption. The first major turning point came during the preliminary injunction hearing, a packed courtroom buzzing with media and legal observers, the air thick with anticipation. Michael, flustered, visibly trembling, and utterly unprepared for the ferocity of Sarah's cross-examination, tried to deny everything, stuttering through his testimony, contradicting himself with every desperate breath. His lawyers, expensive but clearly outmatched by Sarah's relentless precision, squirmed in their seats. Veronica, equally inept, crumbled spectacularly on the stand, her carefully rehearsed denials falling apart as Sarah methodically presented irrefutable evidence of her offshore accounts, her luxury purchases charged directly to company credit cards, and her suspicious expenditures. She burst into theatrical sobs, but the judge remained unmoved. But the true, gut-wrenching moment of triumph, the one that silenced the entire courtroom, caused a collective gasp to ripple through the hushed onlookers, came when Sarah unveiled the full extent of Jonathan Thorne's intricate scheme. She presented undeniable evidence, forged documents, damning emails from Jonathan to Veronica, detailing their elaborate plan, and meticulous, handwritten ledgers detailing the systematic siphoning of Sterling Group's assets, all orchestrated to enable the hostile, fraudulent takeover of the undeveloped land parcels. The very land that Robert, in his profound wisdom and unwavering commitment to ethical development, had specifically earmarked for a revolutionary, sustainable urban development project, a grand vision of green cities, self-sufficient communities, and a legacy of eco-conscious living. Jonathan and Veronica's plan was to simply flip it for quick, obscene profit, incinerating Robert's visionary dream, turning a legacy of progress into a monument to their own greed. The presiding judge, a stern, no-nonsense woman with a reputation for sharp intellect and uncompromising justice, listened with grim, focused fascination as Sarah meticulously laid out every single piece of the meticulously constructed fraud. When Sarah presented the final damning piece of evidence, an email from Jonathan to Veronica, callously detailing their plan to dispose of the old biddy, referring to me, and accelerate the liquidation. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Michael, finally, agonizingly, understanding the true depth of his wife's and brother-in-law's depravity, the full extent of the web of deceit he had willingly entered, looked utterly broken, his face ashen, his eyes hollowed out, a man utterly ruined, his world collapsing around him. The judge's ruling was swift, decisive, and chillingly clear. An immediate, permanent injunction freezing all Sterling Group assets, appointing a neutral receiver to oversee its operations, and, most importantly, ordering a full, comprehensive criminal investigation into Jonathan, Veronica, and Michael. The civil lawsuit would proceed, but the public humiliation, the utter demolition of their reputations, was already complete. The Maxwell family, once synonymous with power and prestige, a name whispered with reverence in elite circles, was now a byword for corporate corruption and family betrayal, a cautionary tale. In the shattering aftermath, the full extent of the financial and reputational damage became terrifyingly, heartbreakingly clear. Sterling Group, once a titan of industry, was teetering on the precipice of utter collapse, drained of its vital capital, its reputation in tatters, its future hanging by a thread. Michael, stripped of his CEO title, faced not only a devastating civil lawsuit from me, but also a severe criminal investigation for corporate negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and complicity in fraud. Veronica and Jonathan were facing multiple federal charges for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Their lives, once so gilded and privileged, were now irrevocably ruined, their futures bleak, their names forever tarnished. The mansion was sold, its proceeds, after legal fees, used to pay off some of Sterling Group's immediate, most pressing debts, a small bandage on a gaping wound. But my mission, I knew, was not merely to destroy. It was ultimately to rebuild, to redeem, to save. Amanda, Mr. Harrison, the venerable chairman of the Sterling Group board, confessed to me in a private meeting, his voice heavy with regret and a profound sense of self-reproach. His face was etched with fatigue and remorse. We were blind. We trusted Michael. We should have seen this coming. We failed Robert. We failed his legacy. Blindness, Mr. Harrison, is a luxury the world can no longer afford, I replied, my gaze steady, unwavering, a quiet fire in my eyes. Especially when it comes to the legacy of a man like Robert. He built Sterling Group not just for profit, but for progress. He had a profound revolutionary vision for sustainable urban development, for communities that thrived, not just for sterile skyscrapers that towered. He believed in building for the future, not just for the quarterly earnings report. I then presented him with Robert's hidden plans, the meticulously researched blueprints for the Emerald City project, the innovative designs for self-sustaining urban ecosystems, powered by renewable energy, integrated with sprawling green spaces, designed for true community living, a harmonious blend of nature and modern advancement. Plans that had been gathering dust, forgotten and dismissed by Michael as impractical and unprofitable, waiting for the right moment, for the right hands to bring them to fruition. This is incredible, Mr. Harrison breathed, his eyes widening as he leafed through Robert's elegant architectural drawings, his detailed environmental impact studies, and his meticulously projected financial models. His skepticism melted away, replaced by awe. A game changer, a paradigm shift for urban living, a vision that could redefine Sterling Group and the industry itself. But Sterling Group is almost bankrupt. We don't have the capital for this. It's a monumental undertaking. Decades of work, billions in investment. That, I said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips, the kind that held both confidence and a touch of secret amusement, is where I come in. I then revealed my own hidden fortune, the inheritance I had carefully managed, diligently invested, and shrewdly grown over 5 decades. It wasn't enough to fully fund Robert's colossal vision entirely on my own, but it was more than enough to stabilize the hemorrhaging Sterling Group, to clear its immediate crippling debts, and to provide the substantial seed capital required to not just restart the Emerald City project, but to propel it forward with renewed vigor and unwavering commitment. I proposed a new, radical structure. I would invest a substantial portion of my personal wealth, becoming the largest single shareholder, and, more importantly, a strategic consultant to the revitalized Sterling Group, with a direct, uncompromising say in its future direction, and an absolute focus on bringing Robert's original, transformative vision to life. Mr. Harrison, recognizing the genius of Robert's plans and the unyielding determination of my will, readily, enthusiastically agreed. The phoenix, it seemed, was about to rise from the ashes, guided by a hand they had long underestimated. The process of rebuilding Sterling Group was arduous, far more challenging and emotionally draining than I had anticipated. The company had not just been plundered financially. Its morale was shattered, its reputation in tatters. Its most talented employees, disheartened by Michael's mismanagement, had fled. We had to navigate a mountain of legal complexities, renegotiate hundreds of contracts, restore shattered investor confidence, and meticulously, painstakingly, clean out every last vestige of the financial and ethical rot that Jonathan and Veronica had left behind. I worked tirelessly, fueled by strong black coffee and an unshakable, burning sense of purpose. My old skills, once confined to quiet observation and meticulous record-keeping, now flourished in the vibrant, high-stakes world of corporate turnaround. I became known not just as Robert's widow, but as Amanda Maxwell, the formidable woman who had, against all odds, single-handedly saved Sterling Group from ruin and set it on a new, more ethical course. My mind, once casually dismissed as useless and senile, was now celebrated as brilliant, razor-sharp, and indispensable. Michael, facing years in a federal penitentiary, eventually reached out through his court-appointed lawyers, begging for a meeting. I agreed, meeting him in a sterile, impersonal visitation room at the county jail. The room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, a stark contrast to the opulent life he had once led. He was a mere shell of his former self, his expensive, tailored suits replaced by a drab, scratchy jumpsuit, his once smooth, arrogant face etched with despair, regret, and the harsh realities of incarceration. His eyes, once so dismissive, now held a haunted, pleading quality. "Mother," he choked out, hot tears streaming down his gaunt face, his voice barely a whisper, broken and raw. "I'm so sorry. I was so stupid, so blind. They twisted everything. They controlled me. I was a fool." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, seeking absolution. I looked at him, my son, the boy I had raised, the child I had once loved unconditionally, and felt a strange, complex mixture of pity, profound sadness, and an unyielding detachment. The emotional scars ran too deep. "Stupidity and blindness, Michael, are not acceptable excuses for complicity in grand-scale corporate fraud and personal betrayal. You allowed greed, avarice, and manipulation to consume you. You betrayed your father's sacred legacy, and you, Michael, tried to discard me, to throw me away like a piece of unwanted meat, to bury me in the desert." My voice was flat, devoid of emotion, a mirror of the emptiness I felt towards him. "I know," he whispered, utterly broken, his head bowed in shame, his shoulders slumped. "I deserve whatever happens to me. But, Leo, please, Mother, don't let him forget me. Don't let him pay for my unforgivable mistakes. He's innocent. He deserves better." Leo, my grandson, the only truly innocent victim in this entire ugly family drama. He was the one bright spark in the wreckage. I had already, quietly, preemptively, set up an ironclad trust for him, ensuring his future was secure, entirely independent of his parents' catastrophic downfall. He would never know financial hardship, nor would he be tied to his parents' disgraced name. "Leo will be cared for," I told Michael, my voice softening just a fraction, a barely perceptible tremor in its otherwise resolute tone. "His well-being and his future are my absolute priority. He is innocent of your sins. I paused, then continued, my voice hardening again. As for you, Michael, you will have to find your own arduous path to redemption. It's a long, dark, and incredibly difficult one. One you must walk alone, within these walls, for many, many years. I didn't offer forgiveness. Forgiveness, I knew, was a deeply personal journey, a destination I was not yet ready to embark on, and it was certainly not something I would simply hand over, unearned. He had to earn it, one painful, remorseful step at a time, years from now, if ever. Veronica, after a brief, desperate, and utterly disastrous attempt to flee the country with a fake passport, was apprehended at a private airport in Mexico and faced the full, unyielding weight of federal prosecution. Her designer clothes and expensive jewelry meant nothing to the grim-faced agents who led her away. Jonathan Thorne, the shadowy mastermind, remained a ghost, a fugitive pursued relentlessly by international law enforcement agencies, forever a living embodiment of the greed he had unleashed. His name became a byword for corporate villainy, a boogeyman in the financial world. Life in my downtown Los Angeles apartment, once a quiet, solitary retreat, now buzzed with purpose and a vibrant, newfound energy. I worked tirelessly for the revitalized Sterling Group, overseeing Robert's pet projects, ensuring his visionary dream of sustainable cities was brought to glorious life, brick by environmentally conscious brick. I consulted on new, innovative partnerships, my strategic insights now sought after by some of the sharpest minds and most powerful figures in the global real estate industry. My days were filled with profound meaning, my mind perpetually engaged, my spirit utterly, unequivocally free. I was no longer a shadow, but a force, a recognized authority. And Leo. He visited me regularly in Los Angeles. We explored the city's vibrant cultural districts, baked his favorite chocolate chip cookies, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. I taught him about Robert's true vision, about the importance of integrity, resilience, and building things that truly last, not just structures, but legacies of genuine value built on honor and purpose. He saw me not as a useless old woman, but as a formidable, loving grandmother, a woman of immense strength, profound wisdom, and quiet power. He would often climb into my lap, his head resting against my chest, and I would tell him stories, not of betrayal and revenge, but of resilience, of rebuilding, of the quiet, unstoppable power that lay dormant within us all, waiting to be unleashed. I taught him that true strength lies not in outward displays of power, but in unwavering inner resolve, in dignity, and in the relentless pursuit of justice. I was no longer just Robert Maxwell's widow. I was Amanda Maxwell, the architect of my own destiny, the quiet, unstoppable force that had not only salvaged a cherished legacy, but had forged a new, more powerful one in its place. I was 63 years old, and I had never felt more alive, more purposeful, more fiercely independent. My spirit, once bruised and suppressed, now soared, a phoenix in the azure Californian sky. If you're reading this, perhaps you've been dismissed. Perhaps you've been underestimated, told you're too old, too useless, too much of a burden. Perhaps those closest to you, those you loved and trusted most, have tried to relegate you to the shadows, to discard you like a piece of unwanted meat. To you, I say this, with every fiber of my being, do not let their cruel words define you. Do not let their insatiable greed diminish you. The fire of your resilience, the sharp edge of your intellect, the profound wisdom gained through decades of life's trials and triumphs, these are your greatest, most potent strengths. They are the inviolable tools with which you can forge a new future. A future where you are the sole architect of your own happiness, the undisputed master of your own destiny, the sovereign ruler of your own narrative. It will be hard. It will be agonizing. You will confront betrayals that cut to the deepest bone. You will face moments of despair and doubt, where the darkness threatens to engulf you. But remember, the quietest forces often hold the greatest, most explosive power. Sometimes, The most profound acts of defiance are not found in loud public protests, but in the silent, meticulous work of reclaiming what is rightfully yours. In selling the house, in finding your own indomitable strength, in choosing your own path, however solitary it may initially seem. And in doing so, you will not just prove them wrong. You will, more importantly, prove yourself right. You will build a legacy not merely of material wealth, but of indomitable courage, of unyielding resilience, and of the unwavering belief in your own immeasurable worth. You are not useless. You are simply waiting to unleash the hidden power they never knew you possessed. And when you do, when you finally rise from the ashes of their contempt, the world will finally see you, not as a burden, but as the formidable, unstoppable force you were always meant to be. This is not the end of your story. It is the breathtaking, sensational beginning.